All right, let's get started. Um, Hi, my name is Kilpatrick. I work on the layout team on Blink at Google. Um, this is going to be a little bit of a different talk. Traditionally BlinkOn talks are very technical and talking about technical implementation things. This is going to be about people's feelings instead. Uh, if you've got questions, just feel to throw them in the chat while I'm going, or jump in on VC. That's fine as well. But let's get started. This is also a talk in sort of two parts. There's sort of two somewhat distinct topics, but they're kind of interrelated. So part one of this talk is about bug triage. People have feelings. When web developers, file bugs with us, they're typically pretty. This is true. Not all people have feelings, but most people have feelings. When people file bug reports on the Blink project, they are typically pretty annoyed. They found, they're trying to do something with their product. Something isn't working, and they've gotten so angry that they've gone through the process of trying to create a bug report on a browser, which is not an easy thing that you can do. So people are pretty annoyed. And anyone that's triaged bugs has done this, but we'll see a bug like this and you'll just go, yep, that's a bug, market is available, priority P3, P2, or whatever, then move on with your day. Or you'll set it to won't fix and just write a quick comment, this is working as expected, and then move on with your day. And this leaves the bug reporter pretty annoyed. But there's not really anything that they can do. One small, incredibly small thing that you can do that doesn't take a lot of time is thank the bug reporter for their bug report. Go, hi, whoever, hi Blink, thanks for your bug report and the clear reproducible test case. Super simple. It makes them feel that their bug report is valued, which it is. Bug report's absolutely amazing. This is something that not we get used to just going through mechanically all of these bug reports, but this creates so much goodwill on behalf of the web developer. So if you can do this, it takes 10 seconds. Just thank someone for a bug report and a test case. You'll at least start turning around their day, for example. And then just be sort of keep in mind, be cognizant about the state of mind this person is in, and try and explain what's going on. Rendering engines are super complicated. It might not immediately be obvious that what they're running into is a valid bug or not. So if you validate going, yes, this is a real problem, we acknowledge that's a problem, I'm going to mark it on this other type of issue that we're trying to fix soon. They'll at least have some confidence, that this big scary browser engine values their contribution. So super simple thing that we in layout do all the time is go, hey, yep, this is a known class of issue in our engine. We're working on this big fragmentation project, which is going to solve this class of issues. I'll mark a blocking on that bug for a moment. Super simple to do. When it gets a little bit more interesting is when there is a won't fix, for example. And you can just say, hey, unfortunately, this is working as expected. This occurs to this complex interaction of things. If you explain what's going on, it will take, this does take time. It'll take 10 to 20 minutes potentially. Crucially, if you can, provide the web developer with a mitigation, this will often make their day because they've spent so much time trying to understand. They think it's a genuine bug in our engine. If you can provide some potential mitigations from them, likely you'll solve their problem, and that's why they file the bug report in the first place. There's occasionally a little bit of back and forth here. So you might say, hey, potential mitigation is doing ABC instead, and they might come back going, no, we can't do that. We tried this instead. Eventually, it will be a won't fix, but at least you've built up some goodwill with the web developer there. There's like lots and lots of like variations on this theme, but just keep in mind that people filing these bugs are real people. They're probably pretty annoyed. One thing that you can sort of relate this to in like your real world experience is if you've ever had a package shipped incorrectly from like Amazon or something like that, and you're really, really annoyed with Amazon in that circumstance, and then you go to their customer service and they go, "Yep, we're going to fix this. We'll send you out a new package." Rah 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 rah. They've like done a 180 on that. So yeah, sometimes our process really helps. What I found is the fact that we have this first level triage really adds a level of people view the project as competent and like a level of professionalism. The fact that we have like a first level triage that will try and bisect any issue. This is a huge asset for just like, oh, the project actually cares. Like they have people that are paid to actually like bisect my bug. This stuff is awesome. Sometimes our process actually hurts as well. You've probably all seen this. This is the retriage bot. The wording here, in my opinion, isn't great. Goes, hey, this issue has been available for over a year. If it's no longer important and seems unlikely to fix, please consider closing it out. This wording is really bad. The number of times I've seen web developers like reply to that bot going, no, hi, this is my bug's important. This is why I filed it in the first place. What do you mean it's not important? So it should likely try and fix that. But that's it from the bug triage perspective, I think. Any questions or comments? I saw Mason is agreeing with me, so I'll take that as a positive. Yep, okay. Let's move on to the business school part of this question. Yeah, so like the sheriff ping is tricky. I think a better wording there is potentially something like, hi, this has been available for over a year. Potentially, a better wording could be something like, please reevaluate the status and priority. That conveys the same information, but it's not like dismissive of the web developer's initial thing. Yeah, I also agree with Dave's comment that we should make the bisect process much easier. The number of times where I've seen, for example, someone can't share a test case, and we wish that they could run a bisect, but it's just super complicated. Cool. There's lots of discussion happening in the chat. Maybe we can chat at the end of the presentation. All right. The second part of this talk is that around bug prioritization and quality. This is something that is popular in other industries. This particular model I'm going to work through is popular in the automotive industry. But basically stems from people have feelings, or most people have feelings. And when you get down to it, product quality is fundamentally about how a person feels about your product. Bugs incoming, or like number of regressions and stuff like that, they're not directly product quality. They're more just like side effects of that underlying thing. or like crash reports coming in, for example. So this model, I'll prefix with also this famous quote by a statistician of like, all models are wrong, some are useful. This particular model is called the Carnot model of product quality. There's lots and lots of different like models that you can use. But you know, but this is one of the like more simpler ones and the one that's probably more applicable. So let's get into it. So the first category of this product quality model is that there's basically 5 categories of areas. The first category is if a particular product doesn't have this particular attribute, then people think that your product is absolutely rubbish. A clear example of this is like if your mobile phone can't last a day on a single charge, then people are just going to think your phone is absolutely rubbish. It's not really worth it. Similarly, if your car isn't able to reach the speed limit on the freeway, again, people are going to think your thing is absolutely garbage. For us, this is bugs effectively. Like whenever someone runs into a bug, people are going to have a very, very strong negative emotion. But if you don't have that bug, then you're not going to feel positive about the product. You're just basically going to feel neutral. Similarly, if your phone can last a day on a single charge, you're not going to think, oh, my phone's amazing. You're just going to like, my phone has met the minimum baseline quality that I expect from it. Fundamentally, I'll bring up this graph a few more times in this presentation, but these like must-have quality group is basically, it has a very, very strong negative emotions if you don't have this, if you don't have this attribute. But if you're meeting it, people aren't going to feel happy about it. The hot take from this is that you can't make web developers happy by fixing bugs. It's just not going to happen. The way that this works is basically, when you've got a bug, people are going to feel very negatively about it if you do have that bug. But if you don't have that bug, people are going to feel neutral. But that's kind of not the point. The point about this is that you want to minimize that developer unhappiness. The second category in this sort of like product quality grouping is the performance or one-dimensional quality. This is typically what we think of like as performance. So for example, if your mobile phone takes X minutes to charge, you're going to be marginally more happy if your mobile phone takes, charges in 5 less minutes versus like a phone that, takes 5 minutes longer, for example. For us, this is directly, limited to performance. My page loads in, X milliseconds, be marginally happier if it's slightly, faster, marginally unhappy if it's slightly slower, for example. One critical thing here, though, on this performance thing, is that there's a minimum bar for performance, which will put these performance things into category 1 very, very quickly. So, for example, in layout, we experienced layout performance cliffs where like something will take like 15 seconds to lay out, for example. This is things like, my page loads in like 10 seconds. That puts it into category 1 where the quality, people are going to be really, really unhappy if you miss that performance, like low level quality bar. This is roughly what the satisfaction graph looks like. People are marginally unhappy if you don't perform well, people are marginally happier if you do perform well. The important thing to note here is that if you don't do the category 1 well, you're not going to make people happy. So this is why fixing bugs is so important. The third broad category is what's called delighters. This is like a feature effectively that that if you don't have it, people are going to be neutral. But if you do happy, people are going to be really, really happy about it. So for example, on a new phone, if you've got like a macro lens that comes on the phone, if your phone doesn't have that, you're not going to be necessarily sad that your phone doesn't have that because it's an add-on feature. But if your phone does have that, you're going to be really, really happy about that. Similarly, if your car has like adaptive cruise control, for example. Interestingly, for us, this is effectively new features. When we implement a new feature, people immediately in the like 6 months afterwards are going to be really, really happy that we've implemented that feature. The important thing to note about this this category is that they move into category 1 for us very, very quickly. So imagine, take for example, grid layout, for example. When the Chromium project shipped this a few years ago, people were really, really happy, really, really excited that it was shipped. Now it's just a baseline. It needs to work really, really, really well. People aren't excited by the fact that grid exists in browsers at the moment. So delighters are sort of like little sugar hits, effectively. They'll make web developers happy for approximately 6 months or so, but after that, you really need to make sure your feature is high quality. This is roughly what that satisfaction graph looks like for this. Basically, if you don't have it, people are neutral. If you do have it, people are really, really happy. Yeah, that's a great point, Eric. Basically, when one browser implements a particular feature, people are really happy with that browser. When all browsers implement that feature, it moves into category 1 very, very quickly. It becomes, the baseline, and people just, people want it to work well. The hot take here is that if you're chasing developer happiness, you can, don't rely on this category for making people happy. It will sort of only last for a short period of time, which is fine. But you also need to make sure that you have a really, really high quality baseline, so you're not making people really, really unhappy. The fourth and fifth categories aren't as important for us. There's the neutral category of things where basically people don't care about this attribute in your product. This is things like, web developers don't really care that our memory, we have a garbage collected engine. They don't care. You could have that attribute, not have that attribute. It won't really affect their perception of there is an awkward line break there. People don't really care if that attribute exists on the product or not. The reverse, there's also the fifth category, which is reverse quality, that if you have a feature, then people are really, really unhappy that you have that feature. This is the why do we even have that lever meme. So, we may have an API, it works per spec, it's high quality as expected, but the web developer thinks it's broken. There's not a lot that we can do here. This is tough to fix, but this is fundamentally that final category. That's it. I'll move away from that slide due to the line break. Any questions or any comments? Yeah, so an example of the last category is it's difficult because they don't usually appear that often. Usually in traditional products like cars and mobile phones, companies will work to remove them pretty quickly. But one example is, this only really applies to people that have driven certain cars. But in certain cars, you need to turn on the cruise control and then engage the cruise control. So it's like two separate operations. But more modern cars, you can just engage the cruise control. You don't need to separately turn on the cruise control module. So that's there is a presence of a feature, the fact that you can turn on and off the cruise control. But the presence of that feature, makes you, be annoyed with it. So it's super annoying. For us, this is things like, it's tough because there was one thing super recently I changed in table layout. where if you did width 100% on a table in certain circumstances, it would overflow. And this, like, we got, several bug reports going, this seems broken. We made a change very, very recently, like in 101, to fix that. And we needed to change the spec and a whole bunch of other things. But that's an example of that final category. Yeah. Disable auto sign-in feature. Any other questions? The sort of TLDR of this section is that, fixing bugs. Cooksmo is probably another good example. Yeah, that's right, Simon. This is why do we even have this lever? If we could get rid of it from the platform would make a hell of a lot, make a hell of a lot of people happier. That's really, really tough. But fundamentally, the reason why I wanted to talk about this is that fixing bugs is hugely important. It won't necessarily make developers happy, but we'll stop them being unhappy, which is arguably one of the most important things that we can do. And this is what drives a lot of perception of our product quality in terms of the eyes of web developers. Sweet. Anything else? Any other comments? Please re-answer. Yep, I'll read this question. Sorry, Eugene. Eugene says, given the mature state of the web platform, should we still be motivated by developer delight and maybe consider a more mature focus on improving the negatives as our primary goal? Yeah, I would say so. I think it's there are going to be diminishing returns on any bug at a certain point in time. Like a bug might be so rare and so uncommon that, it's really not going to affect this curve that much. What I found in layout is that if there's lots and lots of these little bugs that developers like constantly run into, like over time, this is going to aggregate to a negative opinion of the layout engine or the paint subsystem or whatever. So if you've got many small bugs, it's really, really important. For me, having a really, really solid baseline of product quality is really, really important. You can point to products that like solely focus on like category 3 of like delighters, but they don't have the underlying baseline quality. And people are really, really torn, but fundamentally they go on I can't recommend this product. It's got too many like, bugs or product quality problems. So we really need a high level of baseline quality. And we should still focus on these delighters. But we also need to be cognizant and spend resources on the fact that we need to have a high level of baseline quality as well. The reason I like this model is that it's very, very simple to reason about, because you can typically place a feature or a bug that you're working on in one of these 4 or 5 categories, and it like brings home how people are going to feel about your product and how people are going to perceive the quality as a result of that. Any other questions? Rob says it might be helpful to document bug conduct practices like this somewhere discoverable. Yep. I'm going on leave soon, so I won't have time for that. But if someone else wants to run with it, that would be amazing. Yeah, if anyone wants to like drop in with their mic, feel free. I know that like there's a large discussion on the chat that I didn't follow about like bug triage. Did anyone want to summarize that at all? Oh, sorry. Yeah, different type of mic drop. Sorry. All right, we'll call that as it. Thank you very much. Hopefully this was interesting food for thought. I'll be around in the networking space if you want to talk about this later.